The inspection. The three Zalathi inspectors stood at the edge of the Kepler 442 mining colony, their crystalline forms shimmering with barely contained disgust. Inspector Vexhai, the lead auditor from the Galactic Mining Consortium, adjusted his environmental suit and gazed across the scarred landscape, with what humans would recognize as horror, though his species expressed it through rapid color changes across their translucent skin. "This is barbaric," Vexhai transmitted to his colleagues through harmonic frequencies. The translation device on his chest converted it to standard galactic. "Look at what they've done to this world." Before them stretched a scene that defied every principle of civilized resource extraction they knew. Where other species would have installed neat rows of molecular disassemblers or gravitic separators, the humans had carved massive wounds into the planet's crust. Terraces descended into the earth like giant stairs, and everywhere there was dust, debris, and the constant rumble of machinery that belonged in a museum. Sarah Chen, the colony's operations director, approached with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She'd been dealing with consortium inspectors for 3 months now, and each visit ended the same way, with threats to revoke their mining license for environmental vandalism and technological regression. "Inspectors," she said, offering her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Only Vexhai's junior assistant, a younger Zalathi named Kimura, attempted to reciprocate, though the 3-fingered crystalline appendage made for an awkward handshake. "Welcome back to Paradise Valley mining operation. I assume you're here about the seismic readings again?" Vexhai's form flickered orange, a sign of irritation. "Director Chen, the consortium has detected explosions from your operation that register on sensors 3 systems away. The Galactic Environmental Protection Agency is threatening to classify your entire species as ecological terrorists. We are here to deliver a final warning. Cease these primitive practices or face immediate termination of all human mining rights in consortium space." Sarah's smile became genuine now, though tinged with something the aliens couldn't quite identify. "Primitive? Inspector, would you like to know why human mining companies have undercut consortium prices by 70% in just 2 years? "Impossible," the third inspector, Telzon, interjected. "No species can operate below consortium efficiency standards. The energy costs alone for proper molecular extraction would make it impossible." "Yes," Sarah interrupted. "If we were using molecular extraction, come with me. I think it's time someone showed the consortium what humans have been doing for thousands of years." She led them toward a reinforced observation bunker overlooking a section of untouched rock face. Along the way, they passed massive vehicles that made the inspectors stop and stare. Dump trucks the size of buildings rolled past on wheels taller than a Zalathi stood. Excavators with buckets that could swallow a shuttle whole worked in perfect coordination, their human operators visible in tiny cabins that seemed impossibly small compared to the machines they controlled. "This is madness," Kimura whispered, his young voice carrying awe rather than his superior's disgust. "The energy expenditure to move such mass must be astronomical." "Actually, it's about 1/10 what you spend on your molecular disassemblers," Sarah said, checking her tablet. "Diesel fuel and electricity versus antimatter containment and quantum field generators. But that's not even the interesting part." They reached the bunker and Sarah handed each inspector a yellow hard hat. "Safety regulations. Non-negotiable." Vexhai held the plastic helmet as if it were a primitive artifact, which, to him, it was. "You expect this thin polymer shell to protect us? From falling rocks?" "Yes, from what we're about to do. That's what the bunker is for." Sarah's grin widened as she pointed to the rock face about 1/2 kilometer away. "See those small holes drilled into the cliff? Each one is about 15 centimeters wide, goes back about 12 meters. Drilling. Yes, we understand drilling. Every species discovers it in their Stone Age," Telzon said dismissively. "Right, but do you understand what we put in the holes?" Sarah pulled up a holographic display on her tablet, showing a cross-section of the cliff. Each hole was packed with something the translator struggled to convey to the Zalathi. "We call it ANFO, ammonium nitrate fuel oil. It's a chemical explosive." The 3 aliens exchanged harmonics that the translator couldn't quite parse, though Sarah caught words like insane and death wish. "You're saying," Vexhai said slowly, "that you deliberately cause explosions inside solid rock on purpose?" "Yep." "Want to see?" Before they could object, Sarah activated her radio. "Fire control, this is Director Chen. We have our consortium guests in Observation Bunker 7. Are we ready for the demonstration? Roger that, Director. Charges are primed. Area is clear. On your signal. Sarah turned to the inspectors. Gentlemen, you're about to witness something humans have been doing since we figured out gunpowder in the 9th century. We've just gotten really good at it. She keyed her radio again.
Fire in the hole.
The warning echoed across the valley 3 times. Then for a moment nothing. The inspectors began to relax, Telzone even starting to form what might have been a sneer. Then the cliff face erupted. It wasn't the chaotic explosion the aliens expected. Instead, the entire rock face seemed to lift up a few meters, hold for a fraction of a second, then collapse in on itself in a perfectly controlled cascade. The sound hit them a moment later. Not the sharp crack of weapons fire they knew, but a deep rolling thunder that they felt in their crystalline cores. Dust billowed up in a magnificent cloud, but the debris fell exactly where the humans had planned, creating a neat pile at the base of the former cliff. Vexhi's form had gone completely transparent, a Zalathi fear response. Kimura was cycling through colors so fast he looked like a living rainbow. Telzone had actually fallen to his knees. That was deliberate? Vexhi managed to transmit down to the cubic meter, Sarah confirmed. We just turned about 50,000 tons of solid rock into manageable chunks. Our excavators will load it into trucks. The trucks will haul it to our processors and we'll have it sorted by mineral content within 6 hours. Total energy cost? About what your people spend to disassemble 100 tons with your molecular systems. She pointed to the perfectly shaped rubble pile. The beauty is in the placement. Each charge is calculated to work with the others. The rock breaks along natural stress points, fractures we've mapped with ground-penetrating radar. It's not random destruction. It's precision engineering that works with the planet's geology instead of against it. Kimura found his voice first. But the environmental impact is temporary and localized, Sarah interrupted gently. Yes, we make a mess. But once we're done, we can refill, replant, and restore. Your molecular extraction leaves behind perfectly smooth caverns that destroy the structural integrity of the entire area. They collapse eventually, causing earthquakes and sinkholes. Our way might look ugly, but it's actually less disruptive long-term. The dust was settling now and the human equipment was already moving in. The inspectors watched in stunned silence as the massive machines went to work, scooping up boulders the size of houses as easily as a child might pick up pebbles. The consortium said this was impossible, Telzone whispered. They said no species could make explosive mining work at scale. The calculations alone require understanding of geology, chemistry, physics, and a healthy respect for Murphy's Law, Sarah finished. Humans have been blowing things up for so long we've gotten very good at controlling it. What you just saw? That's actually a small blast. Want to see what we do when we really need to move a mountain? Vexhi's color shifted to something Sarah had never seen before. A deep purple shot through with gold veins. Director Chen, I need to make an urgent communication to the consortium. If what you're showing us is real, if the efficiency numbers are accurate, the entire galactic mining industry is about to change, Sarah agreed. The question is, does the consortium want to learn from us or do they want to keep paying 10 times as much for the same results? The Revolution. 3 months after the demonstration at Paradise Valley, the Galactic Mining Consortium's headquarters on Zelith Prime was in chaos. The normally serene crystal spires that housed the galaxy's most powerful mining corporations now thrummed with frantic energy as executives, engineers, and economists tried to make sense of the numbers coming in from human space. Vexhi stood before the Grand Board, his form a controlled silver that betrayed none of the excitement he felt. The 12 board members, each representing a different species in the consortium, watched as he projected the holographic data that had turned their industry upside down. The humans have increased their market share by 400% in the last quarter alone, he reported. They're not just undercutting our prices, they're extracting minerals from deposits we deemed economically unviable. Low-grade ores that would cost us millions of credits to process with molecular extraction. They're pulling out at a profit using these explosive techniques. The Altarian representative, a being of pure energy contained in a mechanical shell, pulsed with skepticism. Surely there must be hidden costs. Environmental restoration alone is factored into their pricing, Vexhi interrupted, something that would have been unthinkable before his visit to Paradise Valley. I've personally inspected 12 former human mining sites. They've been restored to approximately 87% of their original ecological baseline within 5 years of closure. Our molecular extraction sites remain dead zones for decades. On the human colony of New Pittsburgh, Sarah Chen was having a very different meeting. Around her table sat mining directors from 6 different species, all of whom had swallowed their pride and come to learn from the primitive humans. The key, she explained to her alien students, is understanding that we're not fighting the rock, we're convincing it to break where we want it to break. She pulled up a holographic display of a cliff face covered in a complex pattern of boreholes. Every rock formation has natural weaknesses. Faults, stress fractures, changes in density. We map these, then place our charges to take advantage of them. The Crochan representative, a silicon-based life form that looked like a walking boulder, rumbled thoughtfully. But the calculations must be impossibly complex. The interaction between multiple explosive points, the pressure waves, the structural dynamics, Sarah laughed. You're overthinking it. Humans have a saying, when in doubt, add more dynamite. But seriously, we've been doing this for so long that a lot of it is intuitive now. We have software to help with the calculations, but experienced blasters can often eyeball a rock face and know exactly where to put the charges. Eyeball? The universal translator struggled with the idiom. Estimate visually. Look, let me show you something. Sarah led them outside to where a human blasting engineer named Mike O'Brien was teaching a class of mixed species in the basics of explosive theory. Mike was what other humans would call old school, 60 years in the business, with scars and stories to prove it. The thing you have to understand, Mike was saying to his attentive students, is that explosives are tools, not weapons. Well, they can be weapons, but that's not what we're doing here. He held up what looked like a simple stick wrapped in red paper. This is dynamite, invented in 1867 by a human named Alfred Nobel. It's basically nitroglycerin stabilized with diatomaceous earth. Simple, reliable, and it's been moving mountains for over 300 years. A young Zalathi engineer raised a crystalline hand. But how do you prevent chaotic dispersal? Our models suggest that chemical explosives would produce random fragmentation patterns. Mike grinned. That's where the art comes in. See, it's not just about the explosion. It's about the timing. He pulled up a slow-motion video of a blast. We don't set off all the charges at once. We use millisecond delays between each charge. The first blast creates a void. The second pushes into that void. The third shapes the fall. It's like dominoes, but with explosives. The Crochan made a sound that might have been laughter. You're saying you choreograph destruction? That's exactly what we do, Mike confirmed. Every blast is a performance. The rock is our stage, the explosives are our actors. And if we do our job right, the whole thing comes down exactly where we want it. Back in the consortium headquarters, the board was reaching a decision that would have been unthinkable just months before. The humans have offered to train our personnel, HFY reported. They're willing to share their techniques, their safety protocols, even their explosive formulations. The cost would be negligible compared to continuing with our current methods. The eldest board member, a saurian whose species had been mining space for 3,000 years, spoke slowly. You're asking us to abandon molecular extraction, the foundation of civilized mining, for chemical explosives. Do you understand what you're proposing? I'm proposing we survive, HFY said bluntly. The humans have already taken 30% of our contracts. If we don't adapt, we'll be obsolete within a decade. They're not just cheaper, they're faster, more flexible, and ironically, less environmentally damaging than our methods. Kimura, who had been promoted to senior inspector after his insights from the Paradise Valley visit, added his own observation. There's something else to consider. The humans aren't trying to monopolize this. They're freely sharing their knowledge. They seem to take genuine joy in teaching others how to blow things up properly, as they put it. Indeed, across human space, mining colonies were being transformed into training centers. Humans, it turned out, loved nothing more than showing others how to make things go boom in a controlled fashion. The expression, "hold my beer and watch this," had entered several alien languages untranslated, usually accompanied by stories of human demolition experts performing feats that seemed to violate the laws of physics. On Paradise Valley, Sarah stood with HFY on the same observation platform where, 6 months earlier, she had first demonstrated explosive mining to the horrified inspector. Now they watched as a mixed crew of humans and Zalathi prepared a blast under Mike O'Brien's supervision. Your people learn quickly, Sarah observed. That blast pattern is textbook perfect. Vexhi's form shimmered with what Sarah had learned was pride. We may have been skeptical at first, but we're not foolish. Your methods have increased extraction efficiency by an order of magnitude. The consortium is already seeing profit margins we haven't had in centuries. Fire in the hole. The warning came in multiple languages now, as safety protocols had been universally adopted. The explosion was perfect, a controlled collapse that would have made any human blaster proud. The Zealothy crew members flickered through a rainbow of colors that Sarah recognized as celebration. You know what the real innovation was? Sarah asked as they watched the dust settle. It wasn't the explosives. It was the willingness to look at a problem and say, what if we just hit it really hard but precisely? Vexhi made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. Only humans would turn violence into precision engineering. And only humans would then teach everyone else how to do it, Sarah replied. That's what really shocked the consortium, wasn't it? That we didn't try to keep this to ourselves? Yes, Vexhi admitted. Every other species guards their technological advantages jealously. But humans seem to delight in sharing dangerous knowledge. Sarah grinned. That's because we learned something important early in our history. The best way to make sure someone handles explosives safely is to teach them properly. Better to have educated neighbors than ignorant ones when it comes to things that go boom. A year later, at the Galactic Mining Symposium, the transformation was complete. The exhibition hall that had once showcased the latest in quantum extraction technology now featured demonstrations of controlled demolition. Human experts gave lectures on blast patterns, charge placement, and safety protocols to packed audiences of eager aliens. The keynote speaker was Mike O'Brien, who had become something of a celebrity in mining circles. His presentation, titled From Gunpowder to the Stars, A History of Human Explosive Mining, had been sold out for months. The thing you have to understand about humans, Mike said to his audience of 1,000 beings from across the galaxy, is that we've never met a problem we couldn't solve with the proper application of explosives. Mountain in the way? Blow it up. Need a canal? Blow it up. Want to get to space? Strap yourself to a controlled explosion and ride it up. The audience made various sounds of amusement, though some of the more risk-averse species still showed signs of distress at the casual discussion of explosives. But here's the real secret, Mike continued, his voice becoming serious. It's not about the explosion. It's about control. Any idiot can make something explode. It takes skill, knowledge, and respect to make it explode exactly how you want it to. That's what we're really teaching here, not destruction, but precision. In the VIP section, Sarah Chen sat with Vexhi and the other members of what had become known as the Human Consortium Mining Alliance. The organization had grown from a desperate attempt by the consortium to stay relevant into a genuine partnership that had revolutionized resource extraction across known space. Your species has given the galaxy an unexpected gift, Vexhi said quietly. Not just the technology, but the philosophy behind it. The idea that sometimes the simple solution, refined over time, is better than the complex one. Sarah nodded. We call it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Explosives have worked for us for over 1,000 years. We just kept getting better at using them. On the stage, Mike was wrapping up his presentation with a live demonstration. A scale model of an asteroid had been set up, complete with actual rock samples and precisely placed microcharges. And now, ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all descriptions, Mike announced with showmanship that transcended species, let me show you how humans have been moving mountains since before we even knew there were other worlds to move them on. The countdown began in a dozen languages. The audience leaned forward in anticipation. Even those who had seen hundreds of blasts before, there was something primal about watching rock yield to controlled force, something that spoke to every species that had ever needed to reshape their environment. Fire in the hole! The microcharges detonated in perfect sequence, and the model asteroid split along predetermined lines, revealing a core of precious metals that sparkled under the stage lights. The audience erupted in applause, harmonics, light pulses, and other species-specific expressions of appreciation. Sarah smiled as she watched the celebration. Humanity's contribution to galactic civilization hadn't been faster than light travel or antimatter reactors or any of the advanced technologies that defined spacefaring species. It had been something far simpler and far more profound. The knowledge that sometimes the best way forward was to blow things up. Professionally, of course. As the symposium concluded and species from across the galaxy prepared to return to their worlds with new knowledge, Vex High turned to Sarah one last time. "Do you know what the most remarkable thing about all this is?" he asked. Sarah shook her head. "Your species took something that every other civilization abandoned as primitive, chemical explosives, and turned it into an art form. Then you gave that art to the galaxy, freely and without reservation. The consortium's xenopsychologists are still trying to understand why." Sarah laughed. "That's easy. Have you ever seen a really good explosion? It's beautiful. Beauty should be shared." Vexohi's form shifted through colors Sarah had learned to recognize as deep contemplation. Perhaps that's humanity's real gift to the galaxy, the ability to find beauty in controlled destruction. "That," Sarah agreed, "and really big machines to clean up afterward." As they watched the crowds disperse, many heading to training sessions where humans would teach them the finer points of explosive mining, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. 2 years ago, humanity had been on the verge of being banned from galactic mining for their primitive and destructive methods. Now those same methods were the industry standard. "You know what this means, don't you?" Vexhai asked suddenly. "What?" "If humans revolutionized mining with explosives, something you've been doing for centuries, what other primitive techniques is your species going to introduce to the galaxy?" Sarah's grin was positively predatory. "Well, wait until you see what we can do with a simple lever and a really long stick." Vexhai's form flickered, and what she'd learned was the Zalathi equivalent of nervous laughter. The galaxy had adapted to human explosive mining. He wondered if they were ready for whatever else humanity considered simple tools. Somewhere in the exhibition hall, Mike O'Brien was already gathering a crowd for his next demonstration, Introduction to Hydraulic Fracturing, or How Humans Learned to Squeeze Oil from Stones. The revolution was just beginning.